morning. Hi, everybody. We have someone from Vancouver. Hello. I hope your weather is as nice as ours right now. Yay, good. It makes staying inside a little more bearable. I'm in Portland, so it's super sunny and nice here as well. Hi, Patrick.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm okay. Wait, I'm getting in a better position.
No worries. It takes a bit of a trial setup. That's what I do every time.
Yeah. Wait, I need to make the voice a bit up. Can you hear me well?
I can, yeah.
Okay. I'll just put your voice up. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for joining us. We're so excited.
Of course, anytime.
So we have a ton of people joining right now, so I'll go ahead and just kind of do our little intro spiel, and then we'll dive right into the questions.
Of course.
So welcome to Gray's Featured Speaker Series, part of our Virtual Design Expo. I'm Lauren Mang, the digital editor at Gray, and we launched this digital symposium, if you don't know already, a few weeks ago, just again with the hope of building community and relationships within the design industry during this pandemic. So today we're chatting with Patrik Schumacher, the architect and principal at London-based Zaha Hadid Architects. We're super excited. Patrik joined the firm in 1988 as an architectural assistant, and over time he helped evolve the firm into the commanding global architecture organization that it is today. He stepped in to lead in the wake of Zaha Hadid's passing in 2016. So thank you again, everyone, for being part of our live stream today. If you have any questions as we go along, feel free to just drop them in the comments, and we will do our best to answer them as we go along. Okay, so let's dive in. So how are you doing among everything here? How has this time, in our quarantine states, challenged you to really think differently and perhaps look at your work through a different lens?
Wow. Yeah. Well, first of all, the weather is so nice out.
Yes, I know. We were just discussing that before you joined.
And I have a terrace behind me, so to some extent I enjoy working between the terrace and the desk. But then again, you forget to take shower even or have breakfast. And I only usually get out finally at midnight when I do my midnight running. But sometimes, except for sitting on the terrace. So my fitness is kind of on a nosedive.
I know.
Because I used to be kind of cycling to work and roaming around in the office, between offices. But what is interesting is that we actually could be quite productive. So 400 people working from home, a lot of communications through media, Zoom and Skype for Business and GoToMeeting and so on, to keep in touch and be updated. And also a lot of people remotely working their big machines. They're sitting in the offices. The offices we still need as a kind of server room, if you like.
Okay.
And with the big machines connected up to the server, so they can run their models and develop the models. So that works out well. So we're meeting deadlines. We win new projects. We won a new competition very recently, and during that period we won 2 competitions. So that continues, and we actually fully employed and occupied. We nearly would need more people, whereas some of our colleagues in other firms here in London have been had to cut back.
Okay.
So that's a particular market situation where we are not so dependent on Europe or the US, but we are more in Asia.
I see. Okay. So when we come out of this, do you see architecture as having a new role to play?
Yeah, to some extent, I think there are new experiences we are all making. One is that we actually enjoying, or that we're able to work from home to some extent, that we can communicate with clients in Asia via video conferencing. So I would have been about flying 5 or 6 times to Asia in that period, and I'm actually quite happy that I didn't have to.
Right.
So that experience, and the clients start to accept it, and it's viable and feasible to some extent. So that will be an experience. So I think airlines will have a tougher time going forward. And also the office space, I think, investment in that will be reduced. Value of office spaces might fall, and the value of the homes might increase. So because that's where we need more space, and if part of the time we might spend at home. And also I think for those who are relying on commuting with public infrastructure, public transport, that might be more difficult, so they will be calling for staying home more. Those who live in the center, they can walk and cycle. That will be fine. So I've been thinking about 2 things. One is suburbanization and a new kind of form of residence, which is more live work, and that means a kind of atrophying of office space, and that opens up for a space maybe for more residential. So I think one thing is for sure, that the planners have to lose their strictures and zoning policies and allow the market to discover the new distribution between the various institutions. The market has to sort out a lot of things after this, if there are shifts in desire, demand, in behavior, and that also opens opportunity. I want to make one more point, which I find interesting. So using all these new systems, and you relying on telecommunication and the internet much more, that is also a space for designers to enter. And we are a multidisciplinary design firm. We're doing everything from urban design, interior, architecture, fashion, and product design. And we do in our own graphic design, but we want to become interaction designers and media designers and internet designers to some extent. And I've been thinking about this idea of cyberspace. So architects, if we have to pack 100 people like we do sometimes into a Zoom conference, then just this kind of graphic sensibility of a grid or this idea of information given in pages like a magazine might no longer work. And we come back to this idea of cyberspace, a 3-dimensional interaction space, virtual, maybe connected up with bigger screens, with augmented spaces, virtual, real, fusion. These topics have been around for quite a while. But I think now there's a pressure, and now there will be investments pouring into this because we are discovering a new way of life.
Right. Absolutely. So we were having a kind of a Zoom call the other week, and it was a bit of a spirited debate about brutalist architecture. A colleague of mine and I love it. We are very, we defend it at whatever cost, we have. A lot of people despise it and hate it. So I want to know your thoughts, if you're team brutalism or not.
Of course, I'm a fan. Look, brutalism was at the forefront. I mean, I love all the waves of innovation, and I recognize architects who generated something new into the history of architecture. Even if they moved on from this, there's always something is left. And Brutalism is a particular phase of modernism. You know, when modernism started first, it was closed volumes. There was a dematerialization with thin white walls. It was all like frames and canvases nearly, but cubes. And Brutalism is the next stage where they, instead of having everything white plaster, we're allowing for different materials, amongst them concrete, but also it could be rough stone. So there's a bit more richness of materiality. And I think the big thing for Brutalism is you find these projects have a lot of open spatiality. So this is about lifting up buildings because of reinforced concrete, big beams. So you have open long span spaces, you have cantilevering, and that opens up the space a lot. You not have closed cells, but you have an open flow. And that's what we see in these wonderful brutalist projects here in London, whether it's in particular the National Theatre on the South Bank here is a great, has these kind of fantastic series of large cantilevering terraces and double and triple height spaces, as well as the Barbican. They become kind of beautiful roaming spaces. So I'm a fan, and we moved on to the next stage, but these kind of discoveries of open spaces, of continuous spaces, split levels, and freeing the inside-outside flow through cantilevering elements. That's what we still incorporate in our work, but we have now, we're not constrained to concrete anymore. We're not constrained to let's say the rigid orthogonality. We do have more elements at play, but Brutalism was definitely a stepping stone. And still, look around the world, there's lots of projects. There's a lot of current architecture is more regressive. There's some progressive going beyond Brutalism, and there's some which have regressed back behind into more traditional conceptions of cellular spaces, of very statically arranged kind of vertical fenestrations, a kind of nostalgia. And compared to these projects, and a lot of projects going on right now, even also in London, the brutalist spaces are still very futuristic, nearly.
Right. Yeah, they are, absolutely. Okay, so I'm here on record that Patrik Schumacher is team.
Absolutely.
So every hater, there you go. So I know we've chatted before about some of your favorite projects that you've worked on, you know, the Morpheus Hotel, Rome's National Contemporary Museum of Contemporary Art. So can you share a little bit more about one recent project from Zaha Hadid Architects that you love and why?
Well, we recently opened 2 projects in Beijing, which are relatively close to each other. One is, of course, the new airport, the Dashing Airport. It's, for us, a fantastic synthesis of many things we've tried over the years and bringing it home to scale and into a very public domain. Because what is wonderful also, it's very open to the public. Everybody can move in freely into the landside spaces, go up onto the platforms and overlook very deep into the airside as well. So that's unusually open for China, and it's become a wonderful public space. And we have generated fantastic long span structures and cantilevering structures reminiscent of Brutalism, but much more organic. We've incorporated a feature we tried at the Serpentine Sackler, which the large columns, there's only very few and far between, but these columns act at the same time as light wells. So at the point of column, you get a lot of light pouring in and additional skylights guiding the path. So that for us is a wonderful synthesis of many things, also that we were able to deliver such a large infrastructure project. But this is something really which comes at, you know, after kind of decades of research from small pavilions into medium-sized building into a very large project. And it's not easy for an airport to have a sense of the sublime, something elegant still. Right. It's a piece of architectural art. So we're very proud of that. And close to that, we generated a tower over a kind of infrastructure hub, which actually will be also the kind of city check-in terminal for the airport, because it's located in the south of Beijing, which is the Lise Tower. It's a tower we created where we hollowed out the whole tower with the tallest atrium in the world. Also because underneath there's a train cutting right through that side. Okay. So that splits the tower, and then we twisted an atrium up. And it was wonderful because you can then see what everybody else is doing in the tower. You can look across that void into the other floors, and sometimes the floor also connects across both sides through bridges. And so it's a wonderful piece.
Yeah.
And you also very inviting from the outside, because the tower is hollow and also with huge windows to the urban opened up. And it just makes it very inviting, rather than looking at something where you feel it's hermetic, you don't know what's going on, you can't get in. You see right through the tower. So these two, I would say, wonderful. I had one more, which we opened earlier, very recently as well, which is in Miami. We did a very beautiful residential tower.
Oh, okay.
And that is using concrete in a new way.
Love it. Are those photos of those projects on y'all's website? Can people?
They're all over the place. They have been. I mean, what's lovely in the contemporary world, that whatever you have an idea, you a published building, of course, and it flies all over the place. So the discipline is super connected. So every designer can see everybody else's work nearly, but you can also, it's democratic, because also a student with a very interesting, sophisticated rendering, or a young architect with a very fascinating project can get equally go viral with their ideas. And so we all influence each other across the globe. And that also means whether you're sitting in India, you're sitting in China, or in Korea, or in London, or New York, we're all kind of part of that discourse, which has accelerated. And that's lovely to see. So Instagram is, of course, also a major contributor to this kind of fast communication. So culture moves very, very fast, and I love it.
Yeah. With limited access right now to people and inspiring places, what is fueling your creativity at the moment?
Actually, with a bit more time, let's say, on my evening walks, I'm getting ideas on my terrace. I'm reading a lot, and I'm when we're communicating, and so we're browsing the internet. And of course, in the end, what is important is still human-to-human contact. Like this interview and the Zoom conference, sometimes there's 100 people. You hear other people's voices, so not only playing with a kind of an internet offering, but you also get stimulation through dialogue, and that's always very important. That you're not only absorbing, not only a sponge, but you also try out to say something. You say what you like, or you make an argument, and then you get the feedback or the backlash. That's very important. So that still happens without now. It could be happen digitally. I mean, what is great about it now, it becomes kind of group interactions.
Right.
That was before difficult. I mean, we've been in video conference for a long time, but I think there's been a leap recently. They become more robust. They become more less kind of technically flawed, because we're doing them every day. And before it was always, here we go, okay, let's do a video conference, and it was always a disaster. So right. I think there's an enormous acceleration. So that's always said, okay, forget that. Let's meet face to face. Let's have seminars, and I mean, in school as well. I mean, I'm teaching at the A in London, right. And the school closed down, but we continue. I'm teaching the studio. We're having Zoom conferences where you can share your screen. You can discuss in the whole group, like in a seminar forum. You discuss the work. So that's the experience, and that's very important. So I think the face-to-face, the real physical, is less and less important, because also you get the video interaction. That's still important, because you can't fake who you are when you're in front of you with a video face. And of course, to some extent, inside the firm, you also rely on the fact that we had known each other as real beings when we now confront each other in video. But I think it's less and less necessary. So I'm really believing in that there is a chance that urban concentration we've seen over the last 30, 40 years, which was necessary to create this kind of creative industry explosion for the digital world, that the next stage might be less relying on urban concentration. Right,
right. So are there any small accomplishments that you've been experimenting with, or new skills that you're trying out since we've been staying at home more? I know I was joking about baking, and I baked some cookies the other day that were a total disaster. So I don't know if you've been doing anything similar.
I'm not sure. I mean, look, I'm not going to play piano for you, but I've been improvising on the piano, which I wouldn't usually do. Things like that, and actually I've been going back to modeling. I mean, I was, not just kind of instructing and talking and making 3-second doodle, So that's an unusual thing we haven't done for a long time. So there is it's an interesting question, and it stimulates me. What else should I do actually in terms of skills?
Yeah.
It's not going to be knitting.
There's pressure on people to try things, and you don't have to always, but I feel like I kind of need a project here and there.
Well, you know, with all the restaurants closed,
you're right.
We are all cooking more, and we have to, you know, if you don't want to kind of live like brutes, we have to learn cooking.
Absolutely.
And then I'm trying.
Yeah. So are there any charitable organizations or nonprofits that you're supporting or working with right now?
Yes, of course, there's a lot of things going on, and it's lovely to see. I mean, I'm actually working with the joint Art Saves Us. It's a friend of mine, Kyle and Lucas, and what they're doing is, you know, fundraising efforts, but also, you know, making live, you know, using art. So this is poetry readings online and concerts, for instance, with youth virtuosos or also mature composers and artists. So they make little concerts from the home into an audience, and also talks. So I'll be giving a talk as well soon, scheduled for early June.
Okay.
And so I'm also on the board of trustees. I mean, to support that effort. So that's a wonderful effort. And there are other friends who've been doing things. So that's something. We also, you know, I've seen a lot of people helping with the creation of masks and things like that. So and here in London, as you know, there's always every week there's this lovely outings where everybody comes out and clapping to the health workers. so it gives a very warm feeling. So there is this kind of come together element here. Even though we can't see each other much, there's this kind of sense of community and pulling together, which I enjoy.
Right. So we're going to turn to our lightning round questions right now, which is kind of a fire question and answer session. So what is the one thing you do to get out of a creative mind block?
I rarely have those. I mean, that's
oh, that's good.
So I didn't have that yet. So I'll tell you when I come across the block.
Okay, deal. What did you want to be when you were 5 years old?
When I was 5, I think football star.
With soccer, I guess, for us in the US.
Yeah, soccer. But then actually I changed into tennis. So I was actually kind of very hot on the tennis scene in my early. Yeah.
Okay, I miss tennis so much. I haven't played since March.
Oh yeah,
it's driving me insane. I'm just gonna go hit a ball against the wall somewhere. So who is somebody who has shaped your life professionally?
Oh well, Zaha Hadid for sure.
Of course. And
I discovered actually what architecture could be through her when I discovered her as a student, looked at her works, and then I was lucky enough she took me on, and then we developed something together. Yeah.
What 3 objects are on your desk at all times?
Laptop, and there's always a book, and I don't know, my phone maybe.
What is the best advice that you've ever received?
Well, I mean, something got stuck in my mind. I often think about it. My father said, at a certain point in your life, you should not have any boss. And he's right. And eventually, you know, I was no longer, Zaha wasn't my boss anymore. We were partners. And also, I was thinking about also what that means for others. In the creative industries, you need that. You can't have, if you have ambitions beyond earning a living, you bosses in the way. But so in our firm, we also, I'm not like the boss. I'm a buddy, I'm a friend. We have a lot of independence, and we're actually shaping up as a employee benefit trust. So there's no owner. And I think that's important for, let's say, a creative life. And I think more and more in this what I call post-Fordist network society, self-directedness in work, you can find everywhere. And to some extent, even if you're an employee, you will have that self-directedness. And anybody who wants to act like a boss is kind of an anachronism who should But I think real independence is good. Even you can find it also within an employment condition.
Right. I agree. Looks like we have a question. So let me, let's
Okay.
see. Here's one here. It says, Patrick, how would you like living utopia these days?
How would you look like? Well, how would it look living utopia?
Yeah.
Probably she means, he means, how would a living utopia look like?
I think so.
I mean, utopia, of course, lovely, wonderful spaces, and but I'm not thinking of a kind of resort space. I'm thinking of a humming, working, with a lot of interaction, creative space. And but for me, utopia is also a political concept. And so I've been talking about those. I believe we need more degrees of freedom in general. So we're coming out of the stage of let's say the 20th century, where we had a lot of these mechanical mass production systems, where you had to make big central plans to churn out these things, and then also you need to kind of, it was more of an organized, you were a cog in the machine, everybody receiving also these same things, whether it's a packaged holiday, a washing machine, and so on. We're living in a very different era. I don't think we like these lives anymore. It's very sterile, very monotonous. And but our political system is still a bit like fitted to the 20th century. It's a creature of the 20th century, and we need to revolutionize that to allow much more degrees of freedom for individual entrepreneurship, individual pursuits of happiness, careers, relationships, anything which consenting adults want to do cooperatively, in pairs or in larger groups, should be much more allowed. So we can also discover, that the enormous innovation potentials we have now with the robotics revolution, the AI revolution, the capacity of using internet and letting mobile apps fly around the globe. I mean, this culture can absorb so many new ideas. In the 50s, there was only space for 5 ideas per year. Now we can have 5,000 ideas and 5 million ideas, and you can update the app, on a new idea, and within seconds, the whole planet has a new product, and you don't have to build a huge assembly line for 20 years. So that condition requires much more freedom for everybody, and less paternalistic kind of strictures. So that's what I hope the utopia would be, and I think we deserve that, and we can deal with that responsibility which comes with that freedom.
Right. Okay, I think there's another question. Let's see. Here we go. Your firm says, why stick to one? There's 360. See this big. I'll let you, if you know the answer to these, I'll let you take these questions.
Well, right now, yeah. Sure. Well, my background is, look, in London, it's very difficult to build your own house, and so you're kind of stuck with these boxes which are on the market. And I wish we could put a different product into the market here. And that's one of the things. The planners are so restricted. The planning is so restrictive here, in terms of the sizes of unit, and everything is prescribed. So that's why we all end up living in these kind of serial boxes, which are still 20th century philosophy. So yeah, I haven't managed to to live my own dream in my own house. Even the office, it's very tough to achieve that here. There's very little empty space, and everything is prescribed. There's very little entrepreneurship. So that's, if you go to China, to a Beijing office, we're sitting in our own building, which we created, and in our own spaces, office spaces, and that's where it would go on my matching background. Right.
Okay, we got another question. It's formalism or climate change. Which one is more important?
I mean, that's an easy one. Listen, so we need to the climate crisis or shock. We now facing a new level of consciousness, like a tsunami. I mean, we in architecture have been thinking about this for 25 years, and it became nearly routine to consider it. But now there's a new level of urgency. So we are now a task force. We're doing research on that. We want to foreground this, and we need to integrate it with an architectural concept. We don't want architecture having to fight with this, but You know, it's like judo or something. You need to work with the force and exploit that to make new innovations, which are also characterful, because if you have a very, very organically, environmentally light and well adapted architecture, that will also look lovely and interesting because we're more differentiated. It will not be a minimalist box. So we're working on that for quite a while, and this falls into the category what I call tectonism, letting engineering logics, which also are structural logic, but also environmental logic in terms of climate and environmental features and energy, to shape the architecture. It's not against formalism, but we need an open formal repertoire to let these forces take shape. We're not inventing forms, we're letting forces take shape, and that's the way we use parametricism. That's why parametricism is taking these parameters and allowing algorithms and laws of transformation and optimization let these forces and concern take shape. That's what is very important, and that's why we have to reject the kind of a priori formalism, but we still need, we will have innovative form, but that is not for the sake of form, that's for the sake of kind of a life-enhancing environment we want to live in. And part of it is now to have the lightest of carbon footprints you can imagine.
Well, I think that's all we have time for in terms of questions. So again, thank you so much for joining us. It was fantastic to talk to you finally in person. Well, not in person, but kind of in person.
Well, you're very cool. I like you. I think you're very, very cool. And I like your pace. And so thanks. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, good. Well, the archive of this chat is going to be posted on our Instagram stories as well as on our website. And then tune in right here on Friday, which is tomorrow, at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we're going to sit down with Ted Vatican, the founder of Paketo. So see you then. Thank you, Patrik.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.